again, like on YouTube, all the coaching clinics out there, I've probably watched them. And I really would sit down and like take notes and really like learn from these people that are at institutions that, I wanted to be at. And I wanted to learn from those, even though I'm not at their school, like you can still learn from them and take little pieces of information and like add it to your game.
Yeah, so we're back. Wide Out Wednesdays, episode 9. Got a very special guest with us today, all the way from Canada, Ottawa. Ottawa, right?
Yep.
Yep. So myself, Coach Rude, Coach Jalen, what up?
Yo,
Yeah, and then we got the man behind receiver teacher. If you follow on Instagram, how many followers you got?
Uh, Instagram like 30,000,
Yeah,
TikTok 100,000 something.
yeah. So doing numbers there, giving free game to the people, and a lot of valuable information. But Tristan Reddy, all the way from Canada, still playing college football. The man behind receiver teacher. Definitely glad to have you on, bro. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I appreciate you guys having me on. Just talk some football.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, bro.
yeah. No, I appreciate you hopping on, man. But yeah, definitely. It's for us. You want to be able to give high school athletes, college athletes, just information and things that we wish we would have known when we were playing. Obviously, you're still playing. I think a lot of people know that, but still playing college football up there. But really, the first question I have is just who is Tristan Reddy? Like who's the man behind receiver teacher? How did that even start? Kind of take us through your beginning stages of life and playing ball and into now.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I'm still playing right now. I'm 21 years old. So I'm here in Canada. But in terms of growing up, I grew up in Montreal, Quebec. So I started playing football when I was 6 years old, and I actually started off playing linebacker.
hey,
But I was just playing local football there, and I was playing like hockey on the side because my family's big into hockey. Like my dad was a GM of like a OHL team. My brother actually played like a little bit in the NHL, and he also went on to play like in Germany. So, big on hockey. Like my whole family played hockey, and obviously that's like the big thing in Canada. But I grew up with three brothers, and we're obviously kind of rough with each other and stuff. So I just felt like
Yeah.
going out playing football, just being physical. So again, I started out playing linebacker. Got moved to tight end in like my second year. Ended up catching a fire pass for a touchdown my first game. So, and I've been on offense ever since. But yeah, so grew up in Montreal, and then in 2010 we moved to Ontario. So like kind of we're in a small town like close to Ottawa, the capital. So again, kept playing football there. We kind of moved around a lot, and then finally moved to like Ottawa. My dad got sick, so we moved to Ottawa again, bounced around a lot. But it just was always playing football, like love football. And like right before we moved, my parents kind of made me choose football or hockey. And I picked football, and yeah, just been playing ever since, really.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah,
that's crazy. How
yeah.
how big or how big is football up there? I know you mentioned like hockey is like that's the number one thing, but like how big is football up there?
Yeah, so it's not as big as it is in the States, that's for sure. So when I moved to Ottawa, like kind of like in a bigger city, I ended up going to this prep school, like for high school. And so we would go play games down in the States, and our team was kind of assembled like some of the better players in Canada. Um so we had a good roster, like we had some of the best guys, in the country, and in my area especially.
Hmm.
But we'd go down and like play like some top ranked teams, and it would just not go well. And that's a lot of it is to do, it's a completely different game, like because we
Yeah.
got a bigger field, we got the extra player, we got like the waggle when you come up, like so
Yeah.
it's a pretty big adjustment. And I think the biggest thing is, again, like hockey is the sport down here, whereas like, in the States, it's football. Like that's like the big thing. You go like Friday night football, like Friday night
Yeah.
lights, all that stuff. but it's not the same here. And it's just kind of like the culture of like I feel like in the States people start playing football and they're training and everybody takes it seriously, whereas here it's kind of like it's not like that. And obviously a lot of it has to do with like the population. Like we
Hmm.
only have like 30 some million people. But yeah, it's definitely not the same, but I think it gets a lot better. Like as you go up, each
Hmm.
level. And but yeah, again, it's not
Yeah.
really the
How
same.
was it? How was it like? I guess like the youth landscape. I know you mentioned you started playing at like sixth grade and everything. Um, is it 12-on-12 football? Is it like flag? Like kind of how is that? Like, what's the setup usually for that?
Yeah. So it's 12 on 12. So it's
Okay.
not 11 on 11, but it's still like tackle, everything like
Okay.
that. Um, but again, there's just not as much like competition, I feel like, just because of the like the population. But yeah, so like youth football, I started off playing and I'm sure it's the same in the States where you get certain guys that you kind of just give them the ball and they go run and score.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so in terms of skill development, like the coaches I had, that's a big reason why I started receiver teacher is that, the coaching I got as a kid was not really like these guys, obviously they're volunteers. So, you gotta appreciate them for that. But,
Yeah.
a lot of them didn't play football, let alone at a high level. So like
Hmm.
the quality of coaching you're receiving is not really up to par with, any coach you would get in the States.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a big thing. And then like you don't really get quality coaching until you get to like the level I'm at now. And we have lots of great coaches like CFO, Grey Cup winning coaches,
Hmm.
guys that played in the CFO, had great careers. So like that I love it now because, I'm just a sponge to those guys, like in their
Yeah.
experience, like how to play the game. Because like when I was growing up, like again, I didn't receive the coaching, but I would always seek out like information because I wanted to get better. So
Yeah.
um all like the resources I was looking to was all talking about the American game.
Hmm.
And it's really like it's kind of similar in terms of like running your routes. Like most routes are,
Yeah.
the same, but there's not really many resources for like Canadian athletes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Back to what you said about the coaches and up there and being able to have to kind of like give them some grace because it's not their first natural sport. As you get up, as you go higher, it gets better. And I actually one of my buddies actually tried out for, I think it was the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Blue
They
Bombers,
came
yeah.
down, they came down here and held like a tryout. And I
Yeah.
went to that and kind of watched it, and like they're doing the waggle, and obviously
Mhm.
they're playing on American field, but you kind of see the different style of play, and routes and things like that too. And then even the coaching, like I met some of the coaches and like they were very knowledgeable, cool
Yeah.
dudes. So it's kind of cool to see like the differences between the two, but there's a lot of similarities as well. But even back to just as you were coming up and not really having like football be the main thing. Just speak to like the I guess the dedication and the commitment it took for you to like kind of get where you are now. Obviously, not having all the resources that we have here and it being like a natural sport.
Yeah. So that's another thing. Like, growing up, I kind of thought that, like as a kid, you're kind of just like going off natural ability. Like, you
Hmm.
know, at least here, like there's not really many resources for like training or there's no one really telling you like, oh, you should in the off season go work on your game. And that's another thing with the youth football is that like it's kind of a messed up system. And if I were to go back and like tell myself, because like here there's the fall season, so you can either play club football or high school football. So even just that, like, you can either choose between the two, whereas in the States, it's like high school football is the thing. Like,
Yeah.
you train all year to play in the fall for your high school. Like that's what it is. But here there's, high school football. And then, so when I started high school, like grade 9 and 10, I was playing for my high school team. And then I would go home, eat real quick, and I would drive to Ottawa to play for my other team.
Dang.
So I would do
Damn.
that all fall. Like, so I was doing like 2 practices a day. Like, it was crazy. And then in
Jeez.
the summer, I would, instead of like working on my game and, developing as an athlete, I would go play a summer season because that's just like what everybody does here. So
Yeah. Because
I think
CFL's in the
that's the
summer,
big
right?
reason. I'm sorry?
Yeah. CFL's in the summer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, they kind of start off like, late July and then they play up until like, I think it's like January or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the biggest thing is like they got it all backwards here in Canada, in my opinion, because there's no real time to like work on your game and develop as a player. It's more so like, okay, I'm gonna finish my high school season, or I'm gonna like even before I got to high school, like I was playing that, and then I was playing a summer season, so I was never really improving. It was just like, and not to mention if you got like injuries, like you
Yeah.
know, if you got
Yeah.
injuries in that little piece of off season you have, like you're literally just not getting better. So
Yeah.
I think
No,
that's the
that's
big difference.
yeah, no, that's crazy. I didn't realize that. Like
Yeah,
it's almost like soccer down here where it's like they play in the fall and then like you got your travel team and you just keep playing. Kind of what it sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But football is just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, football almost seems like more of too of a physical sport to be doing that. It's just crazy. Like,
Yeah.
like just like with the injuries and stuff. I remember I was coaching at TSU and we did like they had a fall season and then like because of COVID they ended up having to do a
Hmm.
spring season and then turn right back around and do like a fall season again. And like the amount of injuries was
Yeah,
just like ridiculous that year. So I can only imagine how tough that is just going back to back to
yeah. Like you see it a lot with like basketball. Like you got, you'll play like let's say for your high school, and then later on you'll have like AAU. But again, like you said, like football is like a grueling sport, and
yeah, yeah.
as you
Yeah.
get older, people are getting bigger, stronger. Like, so you're supposed to be working, to develop as a player and just like as an athlete in general, like getting stronger, faster. So yeah, if I could go back, there's one thing I'd definitely change.
Yeah. No, that's real. So kind of segue into you mentioned the receiver teacher and starting that one to build a resource for players up there. Obviously now it's 30,000 followers, 100,000 guys on TikTok, a lot of views and good stuff too. I love the stuff you post. How did that start? Like where did you get the inspiration from and just how did you even get it to where it is today?
Yeah, so again, like I mentioned, like the coaching and all that stuff, I kind of took it upon myself because, I just wanted to get better. So, you know, I used to live like if you talk to my parents, like I used to live on like NFL Network. So all the like the football life, the top 10 shows, all that stuff, like that's all I would watch. Like my VCR would just be full of like recorded episodes of those. Um, and then on top of that, just YouTube, like NFL films, like all that stuff, and just learning from, not just receivers, but just learning about football in general, like, you know, about the run game or about defense, like what are defenses doing? Just because I wanted to be smarter and kind of like find an edge over the people like, that weren't doing that. Um, so really it was during COVID that I started receiver teacher just because I was bored, honestly. And I would always be like consuming the content and I just thought like, I could do my own thing. So I just kind of slowly started like with the stuff that I believe in, that really I got from, you know, resources already out there. And I just kind of
Hmm.
like built my own sort of, I don't know, you call it like philosophy almost. And I just started like posting like what I thought or what I kind of learned from others and just putting it together in like a easy to understand way uh, for other people to learn from, basically. So that was always the goal is like I want others to get better, and like have access to stuff that I didn't have access to. So that's basically what it's all been about. And
Yeah,
then
no. I remember when I think I remember when I followed you, you had like maybe a couple thousand followers and then it just kept taking off.
yeah, yeah, so that's really like, I don't know, my thing was just always, and it's not really about the followers for me. Like I've always think like I just want to put the best information out there. And like, if something doesn't do well or whatever, like not that I'm always looking at engagement, but It's
Mm.
just like it could just be better. Like, and that's I think like even as an athlete, that's what I always think of. Like if I'm not doing good on the field, like I'm not looking to point fingers or whatever. Like you just got to be better. So um, I know that was one of the things we're gonna get to, but like in terms of growing your page, but just be better, I guess. Like
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
Um,
that's real.
do you feel that like since you started, because like me and Ruben are kind of different. We're getting into those like whole training, kind of growing a page, all that like after our playing careers. Do you feel like after you kind of like dove into that, full on, do you think it's helped you with your playing career, like on the field? As far as,
100%.
yeah.
Like even like again, like on YouTube, all the coaching clinics out there, I've probably watched them. And I really would sit down and like take notes and really like learn from these people that are at institutions that, I wanted to be at. And I wanted to learn from those, even though I'm not at their school, like you can still learn from them and take little pieces of information and like add it to your game. Um, but yeah, 100%. Like I've gotten to talk and like meet with a lot of people and like pick their brains because of it. So that's been a really huge thing for me too. And like built some like really good connections. But again, just like you get to like learn like so much just by watching and just by, studying really. Like it's just
Hmm.
studying. But yeah, it's definitely helped me a ton, and I've just taken it so much more serious now. As I was growing up, I thought it was just, if you got a 10-yard dig or like 12-yard dig, just run to 12 and then break in. But then like as I started really watching all these videos and, really studying like the position, I found out that like, okay, well, if the DB is looking like this, I may have to do this instead. Or, if I'm depending on the concept, depending like where I have to be, when I have to be there, maybe I can't do this now. Like maybe I just got to get to where I got to go. Um, so just stuff like that, but definitely has helped me a ton.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff, man. I mean, I feel like a lot of guys don't take it upon themselves to like do what you did, like take the time, like go on YouTube, like watch all the clinics, watch all the NFL films, NFL Network, all that stuff, and really digest it. And like you said, you taking notes and really trying to understand it and find the biggest thing I remember that you said was like trying to have an edge. And I feel like that's what separates the good from the great players.
Yeah.
And just even seeing it when you're on the field, like you feel like it, like Coach Jalen said. I mean, is it you feel like in having that while you're playing? Because we always say like, man, I wish I knew what I know today when I was
Yeah.
playing. But like you're playing and like you got all the information. So like, do you feel like it gives you an edge when you're out there on the field?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like you just said, like I, like I'm a sponge, so I'm always talking to like my coaches, especially now, like, we got some really like smart coaches and I've learned like so much. Like I've been there for like 2, 3 years, but I've learned so much being at Carleton, just where I play.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, just like getting to learn from these guys is crazy. And like I always hear them say, oh, if only I knew this when I was playing, I could have played for so much longer, or like I could have been so much better. So like I'm not trying to make that same mistake. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to like leave no stone unturned kind of thing. So but yeah, like just knowing, like kind of hearing from like, NFL guys or hearing from coaches that I respect,
Hmm.
like I take their stuff like for real, and I try to like apply it to the game. And obviously there's a bunch of stuff you kind of got to filter through now because there's a bunch of stuff out there, like, all over the place. But you kind of filter through like, okay, who really knows their stuff, like who's been to the places that they're talking about, like.
Hmm.
And but yeah, like I feel like receiver, it's all about like confidence, I feel like. And I feel like once you know what you're doing and, not only like playbook wise, like where I gotta be and all that stuff, but if I know that, I can get out of my break in 3 steps because I've practiced it so much, like it kind of gives you more freedom to like try all this other stuff because you know that, let's say at your break,
Ding
okay,
ding
when I
ding.
and then now you can do all this other stuff in between because you know you know what you're doing. It's not like you're just freestyling and doing stupid stuff you see on Instagram. Like you actually know, okay, I can do this now, you know? So
Yeah,
yeah, I definitely think.
yeah. Dad over there shaking his head. That's what he be
Man,
preaching every
yeah.
day.
Yeah, I kind of have a question, like kind of following that up. So, like, how do you, kids nowadays, we're always preaching like just be a student of the game. That's like
Yeah.
our biggest thing. Like, kind of how you like taking it upon yourself. A lot of guys, here in the States, like they have all these resources and stuff, and I think they kind of use it as a crutch and don't really fully dive in and learn everything they can learn. Like with you, like how do you get through all of that, the junk and the noise, and there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of people like kind of putting stuff out there, but for you, like what's like the biggest thing when you're looking at people to kind of tell like, hey, like is this actually game worthy, or is this just a bunch of stuff I'm just seeing on TikTok? Like kind of
Yeah.
what's the biggest thing
I
for you when you
mean,
look
I
at that?
think like over time, you just kind of like, you just know, like once you know, kind of like, I think if you learn it from like people that are at the places you want to be, so whether that be like former players or even like the clinics, like there's so much um great clinics out there. Like you can learn from like Urban Meyer, you can learn from Bill Belichick, like Nick Saban, and they're talking about football. And those are like the guys. Like you want to learn from those guys because they have all the credibility in the world. But again, I think not a lot of people, my age or younger, will actually sit down and watch one of those clinics because they're pretty boring.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if you actually do, you'll learn a lot. So, um, but yeah, and there's a lot of people that, even me when I like, I'm no expert. Like I don't want to come off like I'm an expert, but because like there's a lot of stuff when I first started, like when I had 1,000 followers, like you said, like there's a lot of stuff that I posted back then that I don't believe in anymore. So it's
yeah,
like an ever evolving thing. Like I yesterday we had like a meeting and there's like 5 things that I wrote down that I just learned and like that will actually help my game. So I think like once you think you know everything, or if you think you know everything, you don't. So I think
yeah,
like you always got to be ready to learn, and no matter who it is, there's always something you can take away, if like from someone that's teaching you. But yeah, just trying to filter through and I think it just comes with time and experience, but yeah, it's definitely tricky out there.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so last couple questions. So obviously the NFL draft is coming up here in the States. Um, so our question is really who is your favorite wideout in the game right now? And then out of this draft class, who would be the first wideout you take off the board and why?
Um, yeah, so I get this question a lot. And it's like, I don't know, it's because I don't even have a favorite team. Like,
Hmm.
I have in the past, like, I was a Ravens fan actually when they had Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Ray Rice, and that team just kind of fell apart. And then after that, they were pretty bad for a while. So I was just like, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not a Ravens fan anymore. Um, Now I just kind of watch players and like, again, I get this question a lot, like just favorite receiver, and I honestly don't really like have one favorite. I'd say like, guys obviously like Devontae Adams, like Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, like all these guys, like Tyreek Hill. But I just think like um there's so many guys that you could put like Calvin Ridley too is another one I really like.
hmm,
Amari Cooper. Um yeah, I know I'm forgetting like a bunch of guys right now, but
yeah,
uh, yeah, no, but I just feel like there's a lot of people that, are skilled enough to be like considered top guys. But I think, in real football, it all comes down to like your situation, your scheme, how you're being used. Are you being used to like your potential? Like, I think a good example of that is like Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's really skilled, but I definitely think he's being put in positions like to be open. They're creating matchups for it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I think like Cooper Cup was getting a lot of, and like I'm on TikTok, so I hear from these kids that are like, "Oh, Cooper Cup's not top 10 because they find ways to get him open." It's like, okay, like so I don't know. I think like there's lots of debates about that stuff, like
yeah,
but it just really comes down to like who you like and also like are we talking skill? Are we talking route running? Are we talking like who's putting up the better stats? Like, so I don't know. There's lots of debates,
Yeah.
but and then in terms of this year, the receivers, I like Jordan Addison a lot.
That's my guy right there. Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like him. I think he's like really smooth. I actually watched his film, so I have like these cut ups of like all like actually all the guys in the draft this year.
Hmm.
I like the receivers especially, and so I watched his film a lot. Zay Flowers, I like Zay Flowers. Uh, I like Tank Dell a lot.
Oh yeah, he got
Um,
off.
Yeah.
I like Tank
Yeah.
Dell a lot, and I think like obviously he's a smaller guy. Um, but I think he's good. But again, it comes down to like, you could be the best receiver in the draft, but if you get drafted to a team that, let's say they're like a run first team or they're not really like if you get drafted to the Kansas City Chiefs, you're gonna have more success, than someone
Yeah.
like drafted to. I'm not trying to call out any fan bases here, but yeah, so it
I'm a
really
Chiefs
comes
fan,
down
man,
to
so I appreciate it.
your
I'm about to
Chiefs.
say, yeah, he a Chiefs fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So, but I think like again, like scheme wise, like you get a guy like Andy Reid. Like if you were to plug in like Zay Flowers into Andy Reid offense, like it'd get scary. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so there's a lot of guys, and again, I'm probably missing a lot
What
of
are your
guys.
thoughts on Quentin Johnson? I know or Johnson. I know a lot of people have him. Like they kind of fell in love with his combine,
Yeah.
outing and stuff.
TCU.
Yeah,
Yeah,
TCU. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean he's big, fast, has all like the intangibles as far as that goes.
mm,
I'm
yeah,
interested to see at least like route running and seeing how he gets like the ins and outs of that.
that's what yeah, that's the same thing with me. Like, there's always prospects every year that are not so much like a refined receive like route runner type receiver,
Mhm,
but then can also beat you with like their physicality or their speed. Like guys like Jalen Hyatt, like
mhm.
obviously
Hmm.
he's a burner, but I haven't seen him, run a 12-yard dig, catch it over the middle. I haven't seen him do all this stuff. So, and there's guys like DK Metcalf, was another one like had question marks about his route running throughout like the draft process, and he's turned out like he's not one of the top route runners, I wouldn't say, but he's gotten better in that area, and like again, like he's not getting schemed up to go one on one and win, all his one on ones, like unless it's like a fade or like a
Hmm.
slant. So it all depends on like, you know, and they're not gonna draft a guy like Quentin Johnson to do what Amon-Ra St. Brown does or what
Right.
Tyreek Hill does, so you got to keep that in mind. Like, but again, like guys like that, I remember Treylon Burks last year too, big,
Hmm.
physical, fast guy. Um, and like a team is drafting you, same way like when you get recruited, they're looking at your film and okay, he can run routes, or okay, this guy's really fast. We could plug him in and just, run verticals all day. Or, so again, it really depends on like where you end up and yeah, like the scheme you play for and all that stuff. But there's definitely lots of good receivers this year. I've been watching a lot of them, and I'm excited to see where everybody goes for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So, it should be interesting. But I'm glad you said Jordan Addison first, because that's my pick to be the
yeah,
first one off the board. I think he's the smoothest one, cleanest one.
yeah, 100%.
But I like Tank Dell too and all those guys. But no,
Yeah,
it's definitely good to sit up and chop it up. You definitely have to do it again, bro. Like this was
100%.
insightful, and I learned a lot from you. So I
For sure.
appreciate you. But really,
Yeah.
the last thing is just where can the people find you? They probably already know. And then what do you got on the I guess on the horizon over the next 4 or 5 years? Like what's coming up for you?
Yeah, so obviously you can go receiver teacher on all platforms, YouTube. I'm trying to get back on the YouTube grind.
Yeah, we are too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm trying to get back. It's just everything really. I just been school has been kind of taking most of my time right now, but
Yeah.
and we got football, but yeah. So again, like heading into next year, I actually just had ankle surgery. Just had my first practice today though. So I had ankle surgery in January because like I've been dealing with this ankle for like over a year, and I just like I wasn't gonna be able to get surgery before this past season, so I was basically playing with like tape, like
Ankle. Yeah.
injections and like pills, like just trying to get through the year. So and that's not and because of that, like because I was dealing with this like before, like it's been like almost 2 years now. Um so I wasn't able to like properly train last year because I was like resting it. And I thought it
Mhm.
was one of those where you just kind of like rested and it's gonna heal, but it wasn't the case because I had like a bone fragment in my ankle that was like every time my ankle was bending, it was like causing pain. So but I ended up just getting through the season this year and then I got surgery after the season. So I just like had my first practice today. Heading into next year's, it'll be my second year at Carleton. So I'm really excited. We got some like few really good receivers, like actually like um
We
but
gonna
yeah,
have to tune in.
yeah, 100%, 100%. It's gonna be scary. But yeah, so I'm gonna do that, play my season. And yeah, so I it's gonna be my second year, so I have 3 more years. And yeah, just my ultimate goal is to get to the CFL. That's like I've had my eyes on that like since I started playing football, really. Like that's just like, my brother was a pro athlete. He really inspired me and like I just always wanted to be a pro athlete. I thought I was gonna be the next Sidney Crosby, but I had to switch it up, go football route. But yeah, so that's my goal is to go to the CFL and then ultimately do what you guys are doing, like the training stuff and then just being involved in football because that's like
Yeah.
the one thing that like if I wasn't getting paid like anything like that I'd be just doing football, whether that's coaching or just doing stuff like this, just talking football. So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna see where I end up in the next 5 years, but it's gonna be football for sure.
Yeah. Now we'll definitely have to link up here in the States, man. And likewise if we're in Canada. So but yeah, no, anything else for you, Jalen? I think that's pretty much it. What anything else you got?
No, man, it was like really insightful,
Nah,
biggest
I'm
thing I
I'm
took was
good.
just
My internet's kind of bugging right now, but I hope it hasn't been laggy for you guys.
No, you've been
no,
good.
it's been good. It's been good. Like I
Oh,
was saying,
okay, good.
I appreciate the insight of like just being a student of the game and just taking the time to, go out and get it. I mean, like, you're in Canada, people could use the excuse of like, I don't have the good coaches and all that stuff. So it's really cool to see guys just kind of like take it full on, take their future in their hands and go out and find that any, resources and the knowledge and stuff. So kind of put me on my game, got me going, you know what I mean? I need to dive back in, like you said, if you think you know everything, you don't. So yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
It's good to get to, chop it up
100%.
with you.
Yo.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. Definitely have to do it again though, for sure.
Yeah, nah. Part two is
I
definitely
want some
coming.
football.
Yeah, nah, for sure. But yeah, no, definitely tap in Wide Out Wednesdays every Wednesday. We'll be back next Wednesday with another guest, or it might just me and Jalen talking ball, or receiver teacher part two. So you never know,
We'll
but
see.
tune in and do that. So appreciate you, Tristan, and we'll see y'all.
Yep. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Yep.